Welcome to 10 Point Tune Up. My name's Carli Phillips. I'm a Wellbeing keynote speaker and lead researcher for Wellbeing. I'd like to start the session by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to elders, past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge anyone on the call with lived experience or caring for those with mental ill health. Today, we have a very short 30-minute webinar on a 10-point tune-up, really designed for people who are looking after outdoor workers, outdoor employees. It might be in local council or it might be in other types of industries. So I want to start by exploring high risk lifestyle factors. Sometimes people say to me, oh, I'm seeing people doing this or doing that and doing some risky behaviors at work. So some things we want to consider might be nutritional, they might be exercise or lack thereof. They might be doing risky behaviors like smoking or vaping, exposing themselves to dangers like sunburn, for example, but even considering digital lifestyle factors and this constant dopamine hit and stresses that we are getting. Some of the research I have been collecting is showing really poor sleep patterns. And when I dig a little bit deeper, it's nearly always because of device use. So this is just a range of things we want to consider when we're looking at lifestyle factors for your outdoor employees. I'm going to run through 10 points that we can consider when we're trying to improve both the physical and mental well-being for our outdoor workers. So let's start with point number one, making sure we're getting enough exercise. So what we know about exercise is it's important both for physical and for mental health. The guidelines are 30 minutes of cardio per day and 2 to 3 muscle resistance sessions per week. So my question always to outdoor workers is, are you getting this amount of exercise in your day-to-day job? And some people say, yes, I am. They're very physically active in their work. And other people go, if they're doing probably not, the recommendation is after work or before work to make sure you're going out and you're getting your 30 minutes of cardio per day. About 15% of Australians are hitting this mark. So there's a big chunk that are not reaching this guideline within Australia. Number two is about nutrition. So the goal and the guideline for the health from the health department in Australia is to try for 5 serves of veg per day. Now, when I ask people in workplaces about this, they often say to me, what is a serve? So what you can see in these little hands is actually 1 serve of vegetables. So it's about half a cup to 1 cup of veg, and we need about 5 of those per day. We also need 2 pieces of fruit. So if the only time you are eating vegetables is at night, it'll be really, really hard to reach your 5 serves per day. So what we recommend doing is starting to eat vegetables earlier in the day, whether you're having a veggie juice or you're having salad at lunchtime or you're having veggie sticks for morning or afternoon tea. These are going to accumulate over the day and get you much closer to that 5 per day. Now, I've recently started focusing on healthy drinking because we've noticed quite a significant change in the statistics in this place. So point number 3 is about alcohol consumption. The maximum amount of alcohol we can consume to stay within the health guidelines in Australia is 10 standard drinks per week, or a maximum of 4 per day. And if you have 4 per day, you've only got 6 left for the rest of the week. So right across the 7 days, that is 10 standard drinks. There's a lot of confusion about what a standard drink is. So what you can see on the screen are photos of one standard drink. The things people get tripped up on are glasses of wine. So 100 mils, which is not even 1 glass of wine, is 1 standard drink. And also full strength beer is not a schooner, but in a small pot size, that is 1 standard drink. So for any employees that are drinking well over that, and my research always comes up with a graph of people drinking none or people drinking more than 20 or 30 per week. It seems to fall into these two really big buckets. When we've got people drinking over 20 or 30 per week, the goal is to get that down to a maximum of 10 across the whole week. The other drink I get very concerned about is energy drinks that I see a lot of outdoor workers putting a 4-pack or a 6-pack in their esky when they're going to work. What we know is inside one small can of energy drink is the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee, plus 5 teaspoons of sugar, plus the same amount of salt as in a bag of chips. And the large can is double that. And we know in Australia, 48% of our young people are drinking on average 1.3 cans per day. So somewhere in between these numbers is what we are consuming. Now, what I see is people drinking a 4-pack of these per day. And what that means is that you are consuming the same as 2 liters of coffee, the entire box of sugar, which is 200 grams, and the same amount of salt as in 1 small and 2 large fries. So when I go out into workplaces and I go and do a toolbox talk, or I'm talking with outdoor workers out in the field, what I actually do is a live demonstration. So I'm actually putting teaspoons of sugar out in front of soft drinks and juices and energy drinks. I am showing how many cups of water we're meant to drink per day, how many glasses or standard drinks of alcohol we can consume over the week. So it's done in a live demo in a very practical sense, because I keep getting feedback from people saying, that picture of the blue cup or the red cup is in my brain. And every time I go for another drink, I actually think about that. So it is really helping to, I guess, embed that learning into brains when we are out doing toolbox talks live in field. So that's an example of what we are doing to help with nutrition. Number 5 is consistent sleeping and waking times. So we know 40% of Australians are coming to work sleep deprived. We know for outdoor workers that significantly increases the risk of injuries and accidents. In my research, when I ask about average sleeping times, I have got some organisations coming up with ratings that are an average sleep time of 4 or 5 hours per night, which means there are groups of people going to work with 2 or 3 or 4 hours sleep who are really putting themselves at risk of accident and injury. About 40% of those then go on to say the reason they don't sleep enough is because of either gaming, social media, or something on their devices. So setting up really healthy sleep routines where we've got devices away for at least 1 hour before we go to bed just plays such an integral part in making sure we're getting adequate sleep and we're getting really good quality sleep. Tip number 6 is socializing with friends and family. Why on earth would I be saying socializing is a really important thing? Because when we look at the mental health spectrum, when we're down the red end and we're looking at the high risk, we're looking at people who are living with severe mental illness, we know the risk factors, the ones that are pointing down the red end. Some of them are in relation to lack of support or low job control or isolation. Now, the green end is mentally healthy, and the green end has got some protective factors. And if you have a look at that list, so much of that is about connection with other people, connection with peers, family support, customer relationships. And so making sure we are frequently socializing with friends and family, we have a really important support network around us, makes a very big difference to making sure that we have positive mental well-being. Number Number 7, join a sports group or community group. There's some fantastic research about a sense of belonging, being part of a team or part of a community. It's a huge motivator to actually look after our own well-being when we are part of something else. And so I encourage everyone to go and have a look out within your own community groups. I know Men's Shed are doing a fantastic job bringing in men who are isolated or who are a little bit older, looking for that connection. But sports groups, activity groups, art groups, dance groups, there are so many different options. Even thinking about things like how you can give back to your community, it's a really important part of our positive mental well-being. Is there something you can volunteer in? If you don't feel like you need that for yourself, I'm sure there will be other people in your community who will really appreciate you reaching out and you offering your time or your expertise to help other people in your community. Tip number 8 is making sure our outdoor workers really protect themselves, their eyes, their ears, and their skin. So calling this stuff out when we see people at work who aren't wearing the right PPE or who might be getting sunburned or who might not have the right glasses or helmets on, making sure that we're calling that stuff out and keeping everybody safe is something we should all be taking responsibility for. Number 9 is seeing your GP for smoking, vaping, or drug abuse. So what we know about substance abuse is the difference in smoking and vaping is that they're going in 2 different directions. So our smoking rates are at an all-time low. They are nearly down to about 10% in Australia. We've had a very, very strong campaign in Australia to try to reduce smoking, and we had been doing a really good job up until the point that vapes and e-cigarettes were introduced into Australia. Vaping rates have tripled in the last year with particularly young Australians. So I'm really pleased to see that we're seeing some government policies coming in now to try and reduce vaping rates. We're even seeing things like young people start with vaping and then moving across to other substances. So it has been really, really detrimental to the health of our young people. There's lots of support available for this. Absolutely start with your GP. That's the first place to start. There is also a free quit line that has counsellors on there. So make sure you're putting this information up in your workplaces so that people know where to reach out for help to try and reduce some of those habits. Also think about this from a workplace perspective. Making sure you have a smoke-free workplace environment is a very big incentive or motivator to make sure people aren't smoking in the workplace. And number 10 is about annual dental and health checks. So these numbers have changed significantly over the last couple of years. We definitely saw a big drop in dental and medical annual checkups over COVID. It's started to increase now, but it's not back up to the rates that it should be. There's some examples you can see on the screen here. So free cancer checks. We are going and getting those checks, 80% women, 20% men. So there's a lot we can be doing there to encourage, let's say encourage all of us. Who cares what the gender is? We should all be encouraging each other to go and make sure we're getting our free cancer checks. The bowel checks and the heart checks are sitting about half and half with females and males. A lot of these checks are free. They are non-invasive. They are things that our GP can provide us with. So within our workplaces, let's make sure we have got posters up, we've got education available, we've got access so that our employees can get some of these checks done annually or every 2 years, as some of them might be. So once we've done the 10-point tune-up or the checkup that we do in workplaces, I then follow up with handouts. So I make sure that everyone gets this little leaflet to take home. the 10 points that we've done either in a toolbox talk or in a seminar out in workplaces. So everyone takes a handout home with them. We also really like to supplement with talk tracks and with short video bites. So sometimes getting the information once is a motivator, and then you go home and you think, I'll start the next day or I'll start on Monday, and then it doesn't happen. So the follow-up and the messaging is really important. So we will often send a talk track out to team leaders. And the talk track's got 3 questions on a piece of paper, asking your team, great to do at a toolbox talk, when you sit down first thing in the morning at 7 a.m, ask your team these 3 questions. And it might be, what type of exercise are you doing? What type of exercise is making you feel better? It might be about sleeping routines. What have you found is working? What can you share with other people? Or it might be questions about, how many energy drinks are you consuming? How many coffees? How many soft drinks? Let's talk about swapping that stuff out for water so that we can be hydrated, so we can have more energy, so we can sleep better at night. So that conversation that we keep alive once we have done the workshop is a really important part of getting people to actually change behavior. I also find that sending out a very short video, and by short I mean less than 5 minutes, to go with the talk track can be really helpful. So anyone who misses the education or the talk can just watch the 5-minute video, and then when your team leaders have the conversation in your team, it all starts to make sense. So that's how we actually get engagement with your teams. Now, I would never start talking about stress or mental health at the start of a toolbox talk, but I would do it at the end. So once I've kind of built some trust with the team, and we've talked about a little bit about the mental health spectrum and understanding that, I always finish off just checking in that people know how to identify the signs of stress and how to have that conversation. I'm really pleased to see out in workplaces, even for outdoor workers, lots of people are putting their hands up and saying, yeah, I'm really comfortable having these conversations now. I am checking in with people. I do feel comfortable having this conversation. We notice a big generational gap in this. So we know older generations are not familiar with having these conversations. It was something that used to not be taught in schools. All the schools are now teaching mental health, mindfulness, checking in, having these conversations. And so these young adults that are coming into our workplaces, they're really starting to shift the culture. They're really breaking down the stigma of mental illness and are much more confident in having these conversations. So we're really seeing a big improvement in that space. In our workplaces, it's really important that we have got 24/7 mental health services really easily accessible. So whether that's posters you've got up, whether that's on your intranet or your portal, whether you're sending out contacts, so putting in your EAP and the phone number in everyone's contacts, sharing that with everyone's phones, making sure everyone has access to that information is a critical piece of psychological safety. So making sure people, when or if they need to reach out for help, know where they can get that. Just to finish off, this is our wellbeing menu for 2024. If any of these wellbeing topics are of interest to you, specifically for outdoor workers, the approach I would recommend is on-site. On-site, face-to-face, 100% way to go with outdoor workers. Very practical, hands-on people. It is really hard to get engagement online. So what we usually recommend is to come out to depots, come out to offices, come out on site, just do very, very short toolbox talks, just running through the 10 tips, having a conversation, taking away their handouts with them, and then supplementing with the short video and the talk track so that they keep that conversation alive. So we've found that to be the best way to really get engagement with outdoor workers. Often in local councils, We then start where we would start at a 7 a.m. toolbox talk. We would often go over to the office at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and do a corporate talk there as well. So it can become a half-day event talking about similar topics, just delivered in a slightly different way. I want to invite you, if you are looking for a partner in wellbeing in your workplace, invite you to book a wellbeing call with me. You can scan that code on the left-hand side. I also want to announce that we have a very special event coming up called Empower and Elevate Wellbeing. We are going to host this on World Mental Health Day. It will be in Melbourne. If you would like to register your interest for that event, you can scan the code on the right-hand side. It's going to be on the 10th of October at the Kathleen Syme Library in Carlton. I want to thank you for joining our webinar today. We did a very short and sweet webinar. I hope it was helpful for you. Thanks for joining today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.